Good afternoon. It's officially afternoon. My name is Chris Gavant, and I am one of the founders of Levita Compounding Pharmacy here in San Diego, Sereno Valley. We're excited for today's lunchtime presentation with our good friend, Dr. Aliza Cicerone. We have many patients who use her and love her, so I'm excited for you to ask your questions today, get some good information based in science, not just our opinion. We think that when we give smart people good information, you make good decisions for yourself. And it's really about letting you know you have options. There's choices around healthcare, around your healthcare as a woman. So we don't have to accept what our moms did. It's a different world now, and we're living longer, and we want to be vital and healthy and live an optimal life while we're here. So that's what today's about. Our focus is going to be on hormones, of course, perimenopause, menopause. So ask your questions. I hope you're comfortable sitting somewhere watching this, and it's a rainy day outside, you're snuggled in somewhere, or maybe you're somewhere at work on your lunch hour trying to squeeze this in, and I applaud you for that. We're just going to get started. You want to go ahead with the first slide, Doc?
Sure.
Okay, first of all, our sponsors, thank you so much to Spark Health, Doctor's Practice, Dr. Cicerone's practice, Five Rings, Anchor Financial, and Wine, Women, and Wealth, who has sponsored several of our events. Is Nicole on the call? I would give you a second to chat here and tell us a little about Wine, Women, and Wealth. Nicole, if you're on. I'm looking, I don't see her. So we will go forward. Okay.
Okay.
She's trying to get on. Again, here we are again. I've had Levita Compounding with my business partner, Deb Hubers, for 15 years now. And we do specialize in healthy aging, women's health. And we've been working with Dr. Cicerone for a chunk of that time. She's up in Solana Beach, my neck of the woods where I live. And her patients love her. When you take over, please tell them a little bit about you, your history, your practice, all the wonderful things you do there at Spark.
You got it.
So it's really about, I just want to feel like I used to feel. I want to have that zest for life. I want to not be exhausted all the time and fatigued. I think as women, we forget how feeling good feels like. We're so tired all the time, and we're working out and gaining weight, or we're just not unable to cope like we used to cope. And so a lot of this is indicative of hormone imbalance. And it's not about fixing one hormone, it's about balancing it all. So today you're going to hear a little bit about that as well. The old seven menopausal dwarfs. We've some of you maybe who've been to some of these Wine, Women, and Hormones before have seen these, but I think it's a good illustration of some serious things that are going on underlying. I mean, sweaty, itchy, bitchy, sleepy, forgetful, psycho, all of this. That's not good if that's all on the same day. But and I think maybe we've all been there at times, but these are indicative of things that either just quality of life issues, or some of them are things we really need to address, that we can it's about being proactive on these things rather than reactive. Let's not wait until the high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes happens. Let's get ahead of it. So you're not alone. I want you to ask your questions today. If you look down below on your screen, there's a chat box. We have up an hour today for today's presentation, including questions. So please, there's nothing we haven't heard or haven't addressed. So you're not alone. If you're feeling it or you have that question, somebody else surely does as well. So please get your questions answered. Ask your questions in the chat. I'll try to throw them to you, Doc, as we go. And we'll address them when we're on the topic. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Aliza Cicerone with Spark Health. And please tell us a little bit about all you do there at Spark, because it's an amazing practice.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here with you. This is one of my favorite things I get to do on my lunch break. So it takes me out of my regular day seeing patients. I started Spark Health back in 2013. And really wanted to bring more, integrative natural medicine to Southern California. We've really expanded. We do all different types of, lab work looking at getting to the root cause of the issues that we have. And that can be anything from hormone imbalance, both premenopause and menopause, to digestive issues, brain chemistry and neurotransmitters and our mood, preventing, diabetes, blood sugar issues, cholesterol, joint pain, really looking at how we focus on prevention to give us all kind of our optimal life, and be able to get through our life with as few issues as possible. At Spark, we really believe in this, holistic model, and it's really looking at, longitudinal healthcare, like being your partner in health as your doctor. So we have our naturopathic doctors here. We also have chiropractic, functional movement and exercise, visceral physical therapy, they say acupuncture, natural aesthetics. So we really do everything to make sure that we can all kind of be the best versions of ourselves. A big piece of what we do is women's health and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. My background and my fellowship is actually in oncology. So, I'm always very, very aware of how hormones can impact different risk factors in our life, but also how there are lots of risk factors that are not hormone related. And I think when you work with a compounding pharmacy like Levita and work with a really knowledgeable pharmacist like Chris, you're working with people who are really giving you the most safe and effective way to treat any hormonal imbalances with the lowest risk possible. So that's what we're going to focus on today is, how do we do this in a way that really works for us and keeps us safe and healthy and happy. Sorry, let me get
that's such a beautiful marriage of expertise, the integrative oncology and the hormones, because that is a common fear we hear all the time from women. Are my hormones going to cause me to have cancer?
Absolutely. And, a lot of women that do have cancer and do have hormonally related cancers like breast cancer, that still suffer from things that we deal with in menopause, like vaginal dryness. But what are some safe and effective ways to treat that don't increase risk at all? So let's talk a little bit about perimenopause, because I think this is something that's there's such a wide variety and we see such a difference in our patients all across the board. So when we're looking at menopause, perimenopause can really, I'm just going to take us back a slide. So perimenopause can really start at any time. For some women can start around 35-ish. For others, it doesn't start till 45 or 50. Some women, it's a few years. Some women, it's a long stretch of time. But what I notice in women is when they are asymptomatic and they are really present to what's happening in their body, if they're not dealing with it, they have all of these symptoms and they're not sure why they're having those symptoms, like those 7 menopausal dwarves, right? They're having all of these issues with mood and bloating and fatigue, excuse me, and they can't piece it together of why it's happening. So this is where when looking at hormones can be really beneficial.
Yeah, it can make you feel a little crazy this time of life. The perimenopause is the moving target.
So what we like to do is, always have baseline labs drawn so we can see what's happening and we have a way to approach it, right? We have a game plan. So let's talk about bioidentical hormones, because I think this is really the biggest difference that I see when patients see a naturopathic doctor versus just going to their kind of conventional primary care doctor or their OBGYN. How Levita makes hormone replacement therapy is we call it BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And those hormones, their structure is exactly like the structure of the hormones that we are making ourselves. We call that our endogenous hormone production, the hormones we make ourselves. We like that structure to be identical because it's really the safest, most effective way to take hormone replacement therapy. Bioidentical hormones are naturally sourced. And what's so amazing with compounding is you can get it down to like the tiniest little dose. You can make alterations that are really specific to what the patient needs. It's not like it comes in this kind of one size fits all strength or just, 2 different strengths you have to choose from. You're really able to tailor it to exactly what every woman needs. And I think that's what's so important is every woman's biology is different. Our chemistry is different. And we need our medications to mirror that too. So it's really about individualizing and personalizing what you're taking. So let's talk about estrogen, because I think this is, the hormone that we really think the most about, especially when we're talking about menopause. So estrogen has hundreds of functions in our body. A big piece that we notice, especially related to hot flashes, is it regulates our body temperature. And that's what I think most people associate estrogen with, right? Estrogen's getting lower and I'm having these hot flashes. But there's so many other things that estrogen does. So it really helps managing blood sugar because it's helping to improve insulin sensitivity and how responsive our body is to our insulin production. It helps with sleep also, and it's really important for cardiovascular health. We'll talk a little bit later about how it relates to cholesterol and things like that, but it's so important for maintaining our heart health and our whole cardiovascular system. It's also really important from a vanity perspective because it really helps with elasticity. So internally, it helps with elasticity of the arteries, which can actually help with superficial appearance. But the main thing that people see with estrogen is collagen in our skin. So having that nice kind of stretchy, that rebounds nicely, that nice stretchy skin that doesn't have lines, doesn't have wrinkles, that's all of the collagen. It also is super important because it helps with cognitive function. So it's really important for both short and long-term memory. And then, it also, when we're thinking more kind of hormonally, is important for increasing our sex drive and maintaining our sex drive, right? And we talk about elasticity of the skin and collagen in the skin. We're also talking about our vaginal tissue too, making sure that our vaginal tissue is healthy and happy because that makes us want to have sex more as well. And then also, structurally and musculoskeletally helps really maintain our bone density. So healthy estrogen levels can prevent osteopenia and osteoporosis and help keep those bones nice and strong. Of course, with other things like weight-bearing exercises, but this is a big piece of it too. So this is what I talk to my patients about a lot because there are lots of different forms of estrogen. There's 3 forms that we talk about, and 2 of those forms are included in our bioidentical prescription. And this is where there's the biggest difference in using a compounding pharmacy versus using a commercial pharmacy. A compounding pharmacy is going to use 2 of these really beneficial forms of estrogen. A conventional pharmacy just uses 1. So the one that a conventional pharmacy uses alone is called estradiol. And compounding pharmacies, we use this too, and I prescribe this all the time in combination with another estrogen. So estradiol, E2, right, for di. Estradiol, or E2, is really like this big gun in terms of estrogen function. It's what we use for hot flashes and night sweats and to help control that temperature regulation. This supports our cardiovascular health, really important for cognition, memory, brain function, and then keeping those bones really healthy and strong. And then also, this is where we were saying with that collagen, helping with our skin thickness, our integrity, our elasticity as well. So estrogen is really important. It's just not the only thing that's important. Right. This is where we have another form of estrogen that rarely gets talked about in the conventional setting. And this is called estriol, E3 for that for TRI. So this is a less potent form of estrogen, but this is our estrogen that's actually protective against breast cancer. This is like the holy grail of estrogens. This is the part that gets forgotten about, but that's so important to have in combination with that estradiol. Any commercial estrogen that you see, like the Vivel and the Minvel and the different patches and some of the creams, they do not have estriol in them. So you're losing out on all of the protective benefits of estriol when you only have estradiol. You can only get this through a compounding pharmacy. There's no commercial version of this. So this is why when we're talking about, bioidentical hormones and how they're identical to hormones we're making, this is exactly what our body is making naturally. So as much as we can, we want to mimic what's already being made by our body. So we're not just putting in high levels of totally foreign substances or in ratios that are higher than would be naturally occurring in our body.
And this is a good one, speaking of when women have very commonly vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, a little vaginal estriol locally goes a long way to resolving that pretty readily. And it's a common thing, and women don't want to talk about it. Intercourse becomes painful, sex becomes painful, that sometimes women are just uncomfortable to sit in a certain position, and it's a really easy fix.
And honestly, with our patients, it's, a couple of weeks of using this and they're back in business and feeling good. And then it's really easy to maintain just a few times a week. So you're right, Chris. It makes a big difference. And I think it's something that, we need to talk about as women. Like, we need to be able to talk openly with our healthcare providers and our doctors and our pharmacists about sexual health, right? Because it's important to have, a happy, healthy sex life. But you have to do it in a way that feels really, really good for you, right? And I think that makes a huge difference. The other thing that makes us feel happier is progesterone too.
Happy hormone.
Yeah, our feel-good hormone, progesterone. Progesterone is so important in balancing our mood, our stress, our anger, our irritability. It does really keep us nice and calm. It's a very calming and relaxing hormone. When we talk about how hormones affect our cardiovascular system, which people oftentimes don't see the link there, but progesterone is really important for increasing our healthy cholesterol. So our HDL, right? Our H is our healthy cholesterol, our LDL, L is our lousy. So progesterone helps to increase that HDL, which is super protective for our brain, for our spinal cord. It's helping with all of our nerve impulses. So it's super important that we have good, healthy HDL. Progesterone is also really important for headaches that come on with different hormonal changes. It can help calm those down. One of my favorite things that I see with progesterone, and this is when you take it in an oral form, we don't see this if someone does a cream, but when you take that oral progesterone capsule, you take it at bedtime and it helps significantly with a more restful, deeper sleep. And we typically do this in a slow release capsule. So you're getting the benefit of that progesterone throughout the night. And along with estrogen, it's also helping keep those bones healthy and strong as well. So testosterone is important, right? We always think about estrogen and progesterone are female hormones and testosterone is a male hormone, but both men and women, we have different levels of all of these types of hormones. Testosterone is a very uplifting hormone. It's important for energy. It's important for metabolism. It's important for our motivation, our willpower, helps with self-confidence. Why testosterone I think is so important, especially and how it relates to the musculoskeletal system, is it helps us build muscle and it helps us maintain that muscle mass. So we like that for, supporting our joints, obviously, and keeping our strength and keeping our posture. But it's also really important for maintaining that muscle, especially if women are trying to lose, any fat at all. That testosterone can be really important for helping to, okay, I did not move that slide, you guys, there's a ghost. Testosterone can be super important for helping to build and maintain that muscle. And, in terms of libido and sexual activity, it does increase our sex drive and it increases our ability to have orgasm and to climax. So again, while we always think about it as testosterone is for men, women need healthy levels of testosterone also. And that's what Chris was saying earlier. And it's all about that balance, right? It's not just about this one hormone here or there. It's about balancing all of the hormones. So you're looking at the full picture, right? You're looking at how those hormones are made and how they're moved into other ones as well.
Doc, I'm sorry, that might have been me that moved your screen. I was trying to read a chat. There was a question in there. Maybe can you see the chat button on your end?
Let me see. I don't think I can.
And if you just bear with me, I'm gonna go in there and get it.
Take over.
I'm trying to, there we go. It says, hi, thank you for doing this webinar. My doctor prescribed this Hrt Cream Bias 5 Progesterone 200, 2 pumps a day. But it made my symptoms worse. She said there was nothing else she could do for me. Well, am I out of luck and have to suffer through this? Does Dr. Cicerone accept insurance? So I would say, no, you're not out of luck. It's about getting balanced, finding the right dose for you and how you metabolize. But Doc, you take that one over.
I think this is where that's one dose and you're combining estrogen and progesterone together. So depending on what the symptom picture is, I typically separate out estrogen and progesterone. I do the biased as a cream and I do the progesterone as an oral capsule. I don't love combining hormones together personally, because then I can't, I like to be able to tweak and control each of those hormones separately.
Right.
When it's all combined into one cream, I kind of lose that ability. There are a lot of different things that you can do in terms of changing it. You can change estrogen dosing, you can change progesterone dosing, you can put that progesterone into a slow release capsule. So I think that, looking at hormones, it's a big piece of it, and using different hormonal creams, but there are also things that can complement those creams as well and help with symptoms. So it's not that we always want to keep raising an estrogen level or making a cream more potent. It might be that we find that sweet spot for the estrogen and we bring in, a supplement as well that can help with that.
Right.
So there are lots of things you can do.
Yeah, it can also be cortisol. It can also be thyroid. There's a lot of neurotransmitter things going on that a doctor of your level will assess all of that. Correct. So that's what you get when you go to somebody who's going to look at the whole package, like Dr. Cicerone.
I think so I'd say 99% of people that come through our front door are like, my hormones are messed up. And probably half the time it's not their hormones at all. So you do have to look at everything else. And I'm sorry, I don't know who asked that question, but no, I do not accept insurance. We are a cash-based practice, because we don't want to be dictated by an insurance company with how much time we can spend with our patients. If you do have a PPO plan, a lot of times you can, if you have any out-of-network coverage, you can submit your super bills, which has all your medical codes, and you can get reimbursed for it. Or a lot of people use their health savings or their flex spending stuff too.
Right. Instead of seeing the doctor for 10 or 15 minutes, you're there a good hour and everything gets assessed. So there's limits on why they can't bill insurance, but I always say you're worth it. We take care of our family and our husbands, wives, kids, everyone but ourselves. And it's important to take care of us, because how you roll, everyone around you rolls, your family rolls. Okay, there's a couple more questions. I don't want to we may have to go back on the slides. I'm so sorry.
Okay, let's do the questions now.
It says, I've been to many events in the past. I'm now 67 and not using any hormones, but I did in the past. Are there still options for me, even though I've been off my hormones?
Options for just general
hormone replacement, perhaps. I'm not.
Oh yeah,
I mean, can she go back on hormones at 67?
You can. I mean, obviously we would go through your whole history and see how long you were on those. We'd see what symptoms that you're having too. I think that, a lot of times when people are on hormones initially, sometimes they tend to be on higher levels and are actually necessary. I think there can be a lot of benefit, and I don't know what you think from a pharmacological perspective, Chris, but I think there can be a lot of benefit in just being on a low dose of those hormones too. It doesn't have to be that you're on these, you'll think they have to be on these huge doses. And I don't necessarily see that.
No, I don't either. And I also think as we age, our doses can come down significantly. We're not fighting symptomology so much. It's more, it's just maintaining organ integrity. We have hormone, like estrogen. We have estrogen receptors all over our brain, all over our heart, all over our bones. And if we're not feeding those organs enough estrogen, those organs may and probably will be in decline. And so it's important. I think we're living longer. We thanks to modern medicine and sanitation and everything, that we need to keep some fuel in the engine, but it doesn't take a lot. A little bit will do you. And we, the whole thing is like, we want to be proactive to protect you with hormones. I mean, there is great science now to say, even the very conservative groups, North American Menopause Society, will say they can see yet we're probably healthier on hormones than off them at this point, because we're living longer. We need the protection. We need to keep feeding those receptors, hormone receptors, enough fuel, but it doesn't take a lot. I agree.
Just a small dose can be really impactful.
Right. It says, they say thank you. Sleep, weight gain, digestive issues, joint pain, for example. That was for the person who said, are there still options for me for sleep, weight gain, digestive issues, joint pain?
Absolutely. Some of those can be hormone related and some can be totally different, right?
Right.
Not going to look at your hormone levels necessarily if you're having a lot of digestive issues, but we might do some other testing that's more specific to that.
Heal the gut. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. I don't know what slide. Were we on this slide? Did I move us forward?
Thyroid. Let me see if I can.
Bear with us, everyone.
This is the beauty of
Yeah.
Zoom meetings. There we go. Thyroid.
Okay, on thyroid. Okay, go ahead.
So, thyroid's a hormone as well. It's not a sex hormone like estrogen or progesterone or testosterone, but it is a hormone. Our thyroid is this pretty little butterfly shaped gland in our neck right here. And thyroid's really important for metabolism. It's also really important for regulating digestion, really important for regulating our energy. We do see typically higher numbers of women than men that have issues with the thyroid. But these things can be really easily modified with supplements or compounded medications also. Thyroid has a role in cholesterol balance as well. So we want to make sure that we're really modulating our thyroid function and making sure that it's working for us the best it can. When thyroid levels are too low, we can see issues with weight gain, with slow digestion, with hair loss. But we also want to balance and make sure that those thyroid levels aren't too high either, because people can have issues with sleep and have insomnia. They can have palpitations, feeling of anxiety. So again, it's a total balancing act. You don't want anything too high. You don't want it too low. When my thyroid was too high, I've never felt worse in my life. I thought I was supposed to be super energetic and skinny, but I was like boring, could barely get out of bed, right? So
right, yeah, I've had that happen
more
too.
isn't better.
I do think thyroid is an area that is underdiagnosed a lot. It's been in the allopathic world, Western medicine world. I think they run labs maybe on T4 or TSH, maybe T4 if you're lucky. And then the therapeutic range is much different than what a healthy aging doctor would look at. So I think women, men, both, but that seems to happen to women as they go through perimenopause and menopause, struggle with low thyroid typically, and it gets missed a lot.
Well, yeah, and I think, to your point, Chris, when people are running labs, you really have to look at the whole picture, right? So just like I wouldn't only run estrogen or progesterone, I would run all of the hormones that make those hormones, and then looking at how those hormones then move into other things. You want to look at the whole pathway. It's the same with the thyroid. So your TSH is your signal from your brain to your thyroid, but then your thyroid actually makes your T4, which is your thyroid hormone. And that T4 goes through the body and gets converted into T3, which is your most active, available, usable thyroid hormone. So if you just look at the TSH, it only gives you that one picture of that signaling. It doesn't actually show you your thyroid levels. So it is super important to look at everything in its entirety, because one number doesn't really tell you what's going on with the functionality of that whole organ.
Right. It's not a thorough picture. And I know you look at antibodies for autoimmune thyroid, things like that as well, that I think gets missed a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Are we good to move on?
I think we're good right now.
Okay. So this is one of the cool things, and I wanted Chris to kind of talk about this a little bit too, because Levita does some really awesome
I do that
work with skincare. Yeah.
I can talk about the skincare from here. Yeah.
Yeah. Hormones are so important for healthy skin. And so I wanted Chris to give us her take on it, because I think, she's a pharmacist. She gets to make all of this cool stuff and design it all.
Right. Well, and you touched on it earlier, Dr. Cicerone, when you were talking about the collagen in the skin. And it goes back to the fact that we have those estrogen receptors. Our skin is our largest organ, and we have estrogen receptors all over our skin. And you can see somebody who is in estrogen decline because the skin gets saggy and hollow and thin. And so not only having that internal estrogen levels at a therapeutic level, but also we have been putting that E3, she talked about that estrol, I call it little mighty mouse. It doesn't have it's the least potent of all of the thyroids, but it's the one that works great on vaginal tissue for vaginal dryness, and works great on the skin to decrease fine line, increase collagen, increase elastin, those kind of things that estrogen does. So we came up, I was a little, it was kind of about me when I started designing these things, because I was tired of going to Nordstrom's and dropping $300 and $400 on really glorified moisturizing cream. Maybe they threw in a little vitamin C that was unstable and wasn't even holding stability. So I started working on these years ago and have tweaked and improved and changed, but it was my goal to make them in healthy bases that are, with no harmful ingredients, and make them, clinically active, that they were actually doing something, including hydrating your skin, which is super important, but also putting good nutrition back in the skin. We put good antioxidants back in. We put that estradiol back in there. We use some retinoic acid, which is the more potent, more active version of the over-the-counter retinols that you see. So we have things for healthy aging, fine lines and wrinkles. We have compounds that we can create for specific indications like hyperpigmentations, melasmas, rosacea, and we even treat teen acne, because it's basically a hormonal disease state. There's an hormonal etiology to it. So I have teens in flux, hormones in flux, acne happens. You have perimenopausal women, hormones in flux, acne happens. So while we're getting them stabilized hormonally, we can also help. I don't know, my phone's talking to me. We can also help externally too, by applying these things to the skin. Everything we do, we're an accredited compounding pharmacy, which there aren't very many of. Less than, I think, 3% of compounding pharmacies are accredited. It's a voluntary process that we go through for both sterile and non-sterile compounding, where you pretty much open your doors to a survey team who goes over your operation with a fine-tooth comb and holds us to a higher standard, where we source our ingredients, where we are training, our equipment, our testing, our calibration of equipments, all of that stuff. So for me, it helps me sleep at night, and I believe it helps doctors like Dr. Cicerone be able to prescribe with confidence that they know when they write a bias 5 milligram, the patient's getting bias 5 milligram, and based on how the patient does with that, can adjust based on the fact the patient got bias 5 milligram. So there's some consistency in what the patients get.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. Go. Let's
keep talking.
Yeah. Oh, quiz time.
I love this. Okay. So Chris, everyone's putting answers in the chat. Is that right?
Yeah. So you guys answer in the chat. Do not be shy. I would love everybody on this call to put an answer in there. It doesn't matter. You just put A, B, C, D. And it's just for fun, and then you get a possibility to win some prizes. And let me give you a little prize list. It was a 1 hour complimentary appointment with Dr. Cicerone, so that's awesome. I'd love that. We have this little product we stumbled upon. We don't compound it, we don't even endorse it, but I will say this: it's old ingredient. That's in betadine, but it's used nasally. It's a nasal spray, and it really there's good science behind and studies showing that it actually neutralizes viruses in your nasal passages, which is where most viruses enter, especially COVID, where it multiplies back in your nasal pharyngeal area, and you inhale it down in your lungs from there. Well, this goes a long way to neutralizing, and there's actually, I read the studies on it. It's pretty cool, and we can't keep it in stock. So we have a bottle of that, and we have some Levita swag, Levita visor. So the first one, we'll start out with the littler ones. I think the grand prize is Dr. Cicerone's appointment.
Okay.
We'll start out with the Levita visor.
Okay.
Okay. So
first question. So your midsection's getting bigger, and you're gaining weight. You're working out. Which is to blame? So you've got high progesterone, low estrogen dominance, or none. So throw your answers into the chat.
Yeah, throw your answers in the chat. Okay, let's see. I got to click in there, Doc. Sorry.
You're good.
We have a 1, we have a 2. We have high progesterone, low estrogen.
Anyone else?
We have another 2. Okay, so we have a 1, and a couple 2s. What is it, Doc?
Well, let's see. Can we go to our next slide? Maybe. Doesn't like us sharing the screen, does it?
I know they don't. I think I'm audio visually challenged though.
It's estrogen dominance, you guys. So it's when you got estrogen, where you're looking at your ratio of estrogen to progesterone, you've got way more estrogen than is really necessary. So in ratio with that progesterone, the estrogen is too high. So one of the things we said all these great things about estrogen. One of its jobs is also to store fat, right? So it's kind of the thing we keep on the down low, the not nice thing that you're saying behind estrogen's back. But estrogen dominance can lead to that. So that's a really important piece. When we talk about balancing, right? It's not just about giving somebody more estrogen, it's about looking at what their estrogen levels are like and making sure that we have that progesterone to balance it also. So
exactly.
Okay,
all right. Question number 2. There's only 3 of these guys, so answer away.
Okay, so you're happy one minute, you're annoyed the next. Like, sounds like me every day. What is it? Low progesterone, low estrogen, high testosterone, or none? What do you guys think?
I'm clicking in. Oops, sorry. We have a 1. Let's see. We have another 1. Okay, several 1s. So the is this the last one? Well, you and I need like an assistant to do this.
I know. Here, I'm gonna go. Oops, so there we go.
There we go.
Yep. So it is, right?
It is number 1.
You were on it. It's low progesterone. So that's what I was saying with progesterone. It's like our natural Xanax, right? It's like our hormonal natural Xanax. It makes us feel calm and relaxed and just helps with that mood balancing. So again, it's so important to have those correct balanced levels.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And Helena, our event coordinator, is keeping track of who's won this. Okay, this is for the private appointment with Dr. Cicerone. So it's the grand prize.
Okay, so you can't sleep, you're tossing and turning. Which hormone is to blame? So low progesterone, high testosterone, low estrogen, or both low progesterone and high testosterone.
Sorry, I'm popping up. Got 4, 4, 4. Lots of 4s.
Yeah, it's hard because where the chat box is, I think, goes down into the menu bar. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go click ahead so we get to our answer.
Nope.
Oh, well, I'm going to go click real fast through that. Just give you guys a little refresh.
Yeah, a little recap.
Okay. Yeah. Low progesterone. Right. So that's why I was saying, you guys, we like to put that progesterone into that oral capsule, because when you take it orally, especially in that slow release, it's really helpful for sleep. I have so many women who come in and they're not sleeping well. And, all we have to do is a little bit of progesterone and it makes a difference. I think about it also, because as I'm still menstruating, and for a lot of my younger patients too, when you're going through your cycle, I don't know if you guys, ever had this experience, but, right before you get your period, your progesterone drops. And that's what kind of initiates our bleeding. A lot of women, when they're still cycling, getting periods right before their period, they have a lot of trouble sleeping too, because that progesterone starts falling. Every single time when I'm like, oh, when's my period coming? I don't sleep well for 2 nights. And I know that that's when I'm getting my period. Yeah. So it really plays a big role in sleep too.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we have a number of different docs here that you can schedule an appointment with. So we actually have a new one, one of our new doctors, Dr. Brooke Campbell's here as well. We're your core NDs here. We're kind of dictating everything that happens with your healthcare. So give us a call if you're interested. We'll get you scheduled. And then Chris, I did see some other questions that kind of just pop up on the bottom of my screen. So do we want to go through and answer any of those questions?
Yeah, I'm jumping in right here. A lot of those were the answering to the quiz, but there is one from Katrina. How often is it best to get your labs done?
So everyone's different. I like to be on top of stuff and know when there's a problem before it becomes a big problem. So I have my patients do their labs 3 times a year. We do every 4 months. So when I fill my, my patients' prescriptions at Levita, we do it in a 4-month chunk. And we have our lab draw, we have our follow-up. If any changes need to be made, we make them. And when we do a 4-month supply and get you back in for your lab. So it's also, we were talking about what are the nice things you do for yourself and how do you invest in yourself. This is part of it, right? I do this with my doctor too. I have that regular cadence of my lab draw, my follow-up, because it keeps me in check and it keeps me making sure that I'm following my health. I have a family history of ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, diabetes, high cholesterol. I want to make sure that I never have to deal with any of that stuff. So it's really making sure that you're doing your labs on a regular basis. So if we see something that's a little bit out of whack, we jump on it and we don't wait till it's this huge problem. And then, 2 years later, you're going, well, when did that start? Who knows, right? What's that saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
And it's so true. So the labs are really, they're the closest thing that I have to a crystal ball to look inside your body and see what's going on.
Well, it's only half the equation to prescribe. I always tell patients, a doctor is doing you no service by not following you up with labs, because big part of it is let's keep you safe. Let's keep you in therapeutic range. Let's keep an eye on it and do it as safely as possible. So that's why, I believe in following. I'm sure you don't prescribe directly from labs. It's a guide that I'm on the right track. We're in the right direction. It's validation that your gut instinct, because a lot of this is an art too. You can probably look at a patient and hear their symptoms and know what's going on, but let me back it up with blood work. And that's all in your benefit, for your guys' benefit.
Yeah, I always say the labs are like, as a doctor, you have an idea of what's going on, right? You're not just ordering these random labs. You have an idea of what's going on. So we're using the lab work to kind of validate what our train of thought is and what we think is going on. It gives us that assurance that is what's happening. Right. But I think it's also really useful, Chris, like you were saying, like your cortisol and brain chemistry and neurotransmitters, our thyroid. There can be all of these other things playing a role too. And if you only focus on that one set of labs with hormones, you're missing all of the other things. So it's looking at everything together.
Right. And to this, to Katrina continued on, she said, great, thank you. My current doc does it once a year with no changes in meds for almost 5 years. And I'm sure I've changed. And you do change. Things that happen and life happens. So when you're under times of stress, you can burn through hormones. And I was at a point in my life where my mother was dying, running a business, all these things that were just stressing me out. And I thought, I was doing great. I did a spectral cell test. I thought I was doing great nutritionally, supplementally, hormonally, and I was just bottomed out when my lab work came back. And it went along with how I was feeling, because I was feeling horrible and I was just burning through things so fast. So adjustments had to be made because of what was happening in my life.
Well, and that's the really important part of doing the labs and making those adjustments, is because it is keeping the patient safe, and I think, I have a lot of patients that come into me who are on hormones from other doctors. And, I think sometimes also the things that we feel, we don't necessarily feel when there can be harmful levels of things rising. So, I have this one patient who her testosterone level has been really, really high. She was on this very high dose from her doctor. One of the things that testosterone does that's not great is it converts to a form of estrogen that's not helpful. It's a form we didn't talk about because we don't touch it or give it to anybody. It's called Cicerone, E1. And that her testosterone was so high, it was converting to this harmful form of estrogen. She doesn't feel that. She doesn't feel that elevated harmful estrogen level, but that's a huge risk factor. So we have to back her down on that testosterone so she's not converting like that, and look at some other ways to stop that conversion. But again, making sure you're doing those labs is keeping you safe and healthy when we are putting any type of medication into our body.
Exactly. Well, folks, if there's no more questions, we really appreciate you giving us your time and energy today, and hope you got something out of it. Please follow us at Wine, Women, and Hormones and LevitaCompounding.com, and check out Spark Health. It's amazing practice. It's really beautiful when you go inside. It's soothing. It's like a spa, I always say when I go in there. And they do so many cool things, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for your healthy aging and beyond. So unless there's any other questions, I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you to our Dr. Cicerone. You did an awesome job. And I'm always here. If you guys need to reach me, just reach out to Lavita. And if you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer your questions anytime.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, everyone. Have an awesome day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.